Hello, everyone. My name is Fatin Yaro. I am from Burkina Faso, and I'm currently in the Educational Leadership Program here at Western Kentucky. Welcome, everyone, to our The Africa We Want series. This series is organized in the framework of the Global Learning Forum, organized by uh, Western Kentucky University. And this event is actually put together by the African Student Association here at Western Kentucky University as a way for them to reflect on the future of the African continent. Despite the growth that is perceptible for the most part across the continent, we still have many challenges that need to be addressed. But tonight we're going to focus on STEM education in Africa. And our main presenter, Divine Lokuku, is from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and she's majoring in accounting and financial planning here at Western Kentucky University. We have other panelists with us, and I will give them the floor for them to introduce themselves to our viewer. While you're watching this event, feel free, to ask your questions in the comments, and we will be pleased to provide some answers to those questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, I'm Coco Christian. I'm from the Democratic Republic of Congo. I'm a graduate student majoring in applied economics and organizational leadership.
Hello everybody, my name is Alinot Malebo and I'm originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo and I'm majoring in international affairs and political science. Now without further ado, let's welcome Divine Lokuku.
Hello, everyone. My name is Divine Lokuku. I am I am a sophomore here at Western Kentucky University. I'm major in financial planning and accounting, and today I will be talking about STEM in Africa. To start off, I will give a background about STEM. I will talk about STEM in the US. I will also talk about STEM in the world, as well as education in STEM opportunities for Africa, and bring awareness to the issue. To start off, we need to be aware that um, Egyptians actually developed mathematics and medicines before Jesus Christ. But without further ado, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And its definition is to integrate science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in a cohesive learning based on real world issues. But we need to take into account the importance of STEM. STEM actually describes a company's GDP. Without STEM, we wouldn't necessarily know how much a country is worth. Talk about STEM in the US. Actually, STEM was called SMET before by the NSF, and it was changed later in 2000 to bring more awareness to the issue when the US scored low on the international grading. But since the US has been working on STEM to this year, we can see some of the developments it has brought from the issue. You can see right here from the pictures on the slide that 69% of the US GDP actually comes from STEM, and actually 2 out of 3 workers in the US are STEM workers. And you can also see that about $2.3 trillion of US federal taxes actually come from STEM works. But because of this, you can also see that the US is still facing some issues in STEM, even though most of the jobs are in STEM. For example, in technology, you can see that 60% is in computing and about 26% in engineering. The US is still facing shortage of working in STEM related. About 60% of US high schoolers have an interest in STEM because they actually have a proven math proficiency. When actually kids start at high school, about 28% have an interest in STEM, but by the end when they leave their high school careers, about 57% lose interest into STEM. Apart from those problems, actually, STEM workers are paid about 26% more than any other job here in the US. But from this account, if you take into the world, you can see right here that China actually makes up most of the STEM jobs in the world. It leaves most of its money to for its engineers. And then on second, you can see that India is actually working towards STEM very hard as well. And then from there, you can see the US, and then the others right here is just other countries in the world. But the same issue that America is facing, the rest of the world is facing as well. For example, in the UK, they need about 100,000 workers just to meet a demand. And then in Germany, they need about 210,000 workers in STEM related problems. Another issue is that there are many females in the STEM industry. For example, males make up most of the STEM jobs, and there are about three times more males in the STEM than females. But from that, if you could take into account what about Africa, what Africa is contributing, what issues Africa is actually facing towards its education, we have to take into account the government instability in those countries. Since the government is very not stable, you can see that education is not taking a top priority in those countries. Uh, but before that, we have to take into account that Africa actually is about 70% of the world population. And from that, 60% are under 25. And that's a very big working labor for Africa right there. But the problem is that not because of that, only about 22% of primary Africans actually have access to education. And most of these, when they end up going to the universities, only only about 25% actually have a STEM interest. Many of them end up majoring in humanities or social sciences. But the issue from that is that many schools in Africa actually do not specialize in STEM. And because of that, many people end up leaving Africa to go major in other countries because they are provide opportunity to actually go and have the ability to afford them. But when they end up leaving the country, many of them do not end up actually coming back to their countries, and that's what's called brain drain. And brain drain is actually when people just leave, go to other countries, but end up not coming back because they are offered other opportunities. Another issue with that is that they do not have the support and funding they actually need. And you can see that actually many of them who end up leaving, even though they had that plan to come back, they do not know how they can actually show their skills to others and transfer the knowledge. But if you still go back to education in Africa, you can see that it's very much generalized. It doesn't really go into depth about things. It's just about here's mathematics, here's 1 plus 1, and then doesn't really give you electives to go into. And most of these problems go back to the colonial times when we're just being taught the basic needs to actually run a government and not actually go into depth about actually learning how to run a country better, like prioritizing education and taking those necessary skills like the ones learned in STEM to actually better the countries. But another problem is that many countries in Africa actually provide little to no funding to education. even though by 2035, Africa will have a working population larger than the whole world. Aside from the government, if you look at the living situations in Africa, it's actually not the best. If you look, many people still do not have access to water, electricity, and have food insecurities. And without those basic needs that people actually need, education wouldn't be the number one priority in the world. For example, if someone is looking for the next meal, they wouldn't necessarily think about, oh, I want to major in technology. Another issue is that Africa is very behind in connection to the world because the internet is still a luxury in many communities in Africa. Many of them do not actually have access to current world information, and only the people who have access to them are actually like government related. But aside from those problems, Africa is actually working towards solving the problem. For example, the ASU recommends or requires countries to spend about 1% of their GDP improving their education, especially STEM. And some countries have actually been taking steps and actually making sure that those issues are being taken care of. For example, South Africa requires its employers to spend about 1.5% of the payroll educating and training their employees. And actually, South Africa has some of the best universities in Africa, like the Johannesburg University and the Captain University. Aside from South Africa, Uganda has been taking steps as well with the Makerere University. Students actually developing electric cars that shows the kind of innovations that some African countries are taking that empowers their citizens and also sets a very good example for other countries to follow. And from that as well, you can also see that Ghana and Rwanda are taking very good steps as well to make sure that Africa is following what the African Union is actually saying. To end this presentation, I would say that we are the future of Africa, and it is up to us to make sure that Africa becomes what we want it to become. With our great resources, for example, the diamonds we have and the labor, we'll be able to provide Africa the future it deserves by educating ourselves, for example, coming to other countries and getting our education and going back to educating next generation the importance of STEM in the world. Thank you.
Wow, what a brilliant presentation. Thank you so much, Divine, for this insightful presentation about STEM education, and I would say the educational system in Africa in general. Before we get into questions, as I said, if you have questions, please feel free to comment below, and we will be happy to do our best and provide answers to those questions. And other panelists will also be given the opportunity to add up to what Divine has just said. But there's a couple of points that I wanted to emphasize, to put or to emphasize a little bit on what Divine has said. She mentioned in her presentation that the educational issue in Africa is part due to some of the remnants, of the colonial period. Coming from a francophone-speaking African country, I know a little bit about that portion of Africa, and I do confirm that what she said is very true. We have inherited, an educational system, a curriculum that dates back to the colonial period in that part of the continent. So the French colonizers, when they came to that part of the world, they came with a curriculum that was kind of designed to educate the African elite so that they can interact with the French colonizers to work, in the administration. And until or after the independence, the unfortunate fact is that most of those countries did not proceed to a reform of the educational system by adopting curriculum that are adapted to the needs of the continent. So this is something that many francophone-speaking African countries would need to look into by reforming the educational system through the adoption, as I said, of a curricula that meet the need of the African citizens. The second point, Divine also, well, maybe she didn't touch that much on that, but the educational issue also in most African countries is somehow linked, to what is known as the adjustment, structural adjustment programs. These are programs that were designed by some of the Bretton Woods institutions, the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund in the early 1990s. And these Bretton Woods institutions kind of imposed, on many of the African countries not to invest. It was, a requirement. It was kind of, as I said, imposed to many of them not to invest in education as a way for them to be able to pay back the debt. And this has contributed a lot to cause a damage to the educational system in many parts of the African country. I myself, I taught for 7 years in Burkina Faso, and we do lack a lot in terms of infrastructure. When I first started teaching, I had 125 students in one class. How do you teach those kids? And this is the result of the structural adjustment programs, as I've mentioned, that ask African governments not to invest in some social sectors such as education, health, housing, and so on and so forth. And this is something that also needs to be addressed. But when we look into the Anglophone-speaking countries, the reality is a little bit different. You compare Ghana, for example, or Nigeria, to countries such as Burkina Faso that have been colonized by France, or Mali, you would see that the gap is very, very large because of the presence and the dominance of those former colonizers that are still influential on that part of the world. So I'll open up and give the floor to other panelists to give their contribution also to what has just been said. And as I said, if you have questions, please feel free to comment below, and we will be happy to provide some answers to those questions.
Thanks, Fatin. I would like to react on the issues of STEM in Africa, like the stereotype that is created about women and the STEM. The women, they are told that science is difficult, and also they are told that science is boring, and there is no life in science out of the laboratories. So all this makes women to not select sciences and other STEM program while they are given opportunities to join universities and to choose their curriculum that they want to study. Another one, it is also the gender bias funding in Africa. In Africa, they try to give more priorities to men when it comes to fundings of science and other STEM program. Also, there is untold stories about discoveries and other innovation that are done in Africa by African engineers and scientists. For example, Dr. Muyembe in DRC, who has discovered the Ebola virus and who has treated the Ebola, is not is not talked about in the world. Is not getting any assistance, or there is no funding which have been availed to help him to excel in researches and so on. Also, for the Africa we want, we should be able to participate in the global economy. This means that Africa should be able to create strong indigenous scientific and technological and technological capacities that reflect the reality on the ground in Africa, because we are the one who knows who know our own problem, and we are the only one who can create the best solution to our problems. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much again for everybody. I think everything is clear about the problem that we do have in Africa. And if we think about the problem in Africa, basically, if we go back and think about the report that have been reported by UNESCO, UNESCO's 2018 Global Education Monitoring the report, only 22% of primary African schools have the access of electricity, and that is a big issue to bring that awareness about STEM in Africa. On top of that, the internet access is still an issue in many African countries. So if we invest education system and try to change education system to invest in young people, I think that will be one of the solutions on how we can develop and grow our economy through the STEM process. So again, like we said, if there is any question, please feel free to ask, and we'll be more than happy to answer those questions. So there is a question that said, what do you think is the one of the greatest challenges and one of the greatest reward of studying in the US as an African student? Any idea?
Anybody wants to answer that question?
One of the greatest challenges is actually getting that education in the US, because I know that many people who actually try to come study here, they don't have the right for the system. And when you actually come in in America, it's actually not like everything you've known your whole life. It's actually very difficult, and you actually have to find those opportunities yourself with the right help. And sometimes it's just very scary when you come here and you don't have those resources available right away. But I would say one of the greatest rewards of studying in Africa, in the US as an African student, is actually you have the upper hand. And from there, you can also go back and transfer those skills and knowledge you have learned here to those who actually need them over there.
Anything else to add to what Divine has just said?
Yeah, just like what Fatin Divine said, that personally, the greatest challenges I could say is adjust to a new culture, because when you first come to the country, you really don't know anybody. Even the accent itself, it is also a challenge. And the reward of being and studying in the US is it open a lot of doors to a lot of opportunities. So you have access to a lot of things. So that will be kind of a reward about studying in the US.
Any other question? Well, oops, okay. Diana is asking, where is the best place to start in tackling the issue of STEM education in Africa? There are so many challenges, it seems. You mentioned brain drain. Where is the best?
I think one way the government has started already implementing the STEM education in an African system, but now they should move to the second step of of a of a of training the teachers, the professors, or equipping the professors with requisite skills that will enable them to teach the students. Also, there should be increase of funds in research, and also there should be also increase in PhD number in Africa. Yeah, and I think also Africa should try to adapt the technology to the level of the technology of the world. So, which means that the money that has been provided by the government, like the 1% of GDP, would not be enough to make all those changes happen. So, our government should really add on that and raise that amount very high.
Well, and in addition to what Christian has just mentioned, as I was saying earlier, I think the issue of infrastructure is also a big problem, in Africa in terms of education. We do not have enough schools, and the few that exist, most of the time lack, qualified teachers. And in addition to the lack of teachers, we also do not have enough technology, the material, to actually teach effectively and efficiently the young people in a way that they gain those technological and STEM skills to advance and transform the economy in the face of the continent. And as Diana has also mentioned, brain drain is a serious issue. There are a lot of bright minds, Africans around the world, participating, contributing to the development of technology, but they are not going back to their home countries. And Divine has mentioned that in her presentation. It's probably due to the lack of opportunities that also make them refuse to go. You come to the United States, or you go to Canada or some European countries, and you get that advanced education, you get that advanced skill, and you take them back to a place where it will not be valued. So I think the main solution would be for African leaders to seriously invest, in education, and provide more opportunities to the young people that are educated, so that they are motivated to, go back to Africa and share that knowledge with Africans in a way that they could better contribute to the development of the continent. Any other question? Katie Bush, Scott is asking, thank you for touching on women in STEM within Africa. This is something I was curious about, since I know we still struggle with this disparity in the United States as well. Thank you for that comment, Katie Bush. Does anyone want to add something to that? Women in STEM in Africa.
Yes, going to school here, I see the same problem, but in Africa, it's actually a very big problem because you see, even the people who have access to school or education are mostly males. Females are mostly just left behind in the home doing chores. So yeah, I think if we're being doing this actually easy in Africa, that are actually doing the good work awareness issue, they base it on women a little girls. STEM from elementary all the way to high school has a very good chance of actually bringing people more in the STEM education. So I think if we target those little young girls and actually give them the support, opportunities they need to grow, it will actually benefit the whole continent as a whole.
Anything else? All right. It looks like there is no other question. So thank you so much to our panelists. And thank you also to those who are watching this event via Facebook or YouTube. And as I said, still feel free to comment below with any contribution, question, and we will be more than happy to provide some answers to those questions. So stay tuned. This, as I mentioned earlier, is a series, and we will have another conversation in March about public health in Africa, and we will have a guest speaker from Ghana join us for that event. Thank you for joining us tonight, and have a good night.